When Vigilus arrives in the capital city, he is immediately arrested and his 2 bags, each containing 50 pounds of gold, are confiscated. Attila begins the interrogation in a quiet tone. "Why do you have so much gold in your bags?" The Roman finds a plausible answer. 50 pounds have been entrusted to me by some families in Constantinople, that I may redeem their relatives detained by you. The other bag, I brought it the first time in order to buy something here. The emperor asks ironically, "Really? Do not you know that I forbade the Romans to buy anything in our country?" Vigilus answers as quietly as possible, "That's why I did not spend anything." But he notices Edecon in the suite of Attila, smiling and exchanging glances with Orestes. The Roman understands with terror that these barbarians had him all the time led by the tip of his nose. Attila begins to get angry, but, perhaps, you wanted to corrupt someone here. For example, Edecon. Panicked, Vigilus cries, "Edecon lies. Do not believe it." Attila looks at him with contempt. "Who wanted Edecon to organize an attempt on me?" "No one. You do not want to confess. Too bad for you. We will ask your son." Frightened, Profime answers all the questions with the same sentence, "I know nothing." Attila again addresses his father, "Your son knows nothing, so it is useless for us. He's going to be executed." The warriors throw the young man on their knees and take their swords out of their scabbards. Terrified, Vigilus shouts with tears in his eyes, "Do not kill him. He does not know anything. I am alone guilty and no one else." The emperor raises his right hand. One of the warriors raises his sword above Profime's head. Attila says with great contempt, "This plot is not organized at your level. Here are mingled larger birds." "Who are they?" Vigilus looks at Attila's hand, ready to fall down, and the warrior, waiting for the command with his sword lifted above the head of his son. He throws himself on his knees before the Hun emperor, "It's Chrysippus." Attila orders the secretary to verbalize the confession of Vigilus. To the failure of this stupid plot, Orestes and Esla are sent to Constantinople. They present themselves to the imperial palace and demand to be received immediately by Theodosius. The defeated emperor can only accept their request. The ambassadors, according to the etiquette of the court of Constantinople, were obliged to lie flat and crawl towards the emperor on the belly from the door to the throne, without raising his head, kiss his red boot, and leave the room in the same way, crawling back from the throne to the door. But the Huns sent no longer respect these rules for a long time. The ambassadors of Attila enter the hall, and under the restless eyes of the courtiers approach Theodosius with a sure step. Chrysippus, placed beside the throne, remarks with terror his purse hanging on the neck of Orestes. The emperor looks grave and proud but feels the nervousness of the great eunuch and understands with great disappointment that the plot is foiled. The ambassadors coldly salutes the emperor. Then Orestes addresses Chrysippus, "Do you recognize your purse as a testimony of your crime?" Vigilus is arrested. Without waiting for her reply, Esla begins to read the statement of Attila, cutting it in short sentences, in order to emphasize its importance. Theodosius is the son of an illustrious and respectable father. Attila also descended from a noble family, and he supported by his actions the dignity that his father Monday transmitted to him. But Theodosius became unworthy of the rank of his ancestors by consenting to pay a shameful tribute. He became a vassal. The emperor's face, accustomed to flattering words, expresses surprise, but Theodosius is silent. incapable of denying this statement of his real situation after the defeats of his armies. Ezra continues reading the message of Attila. He must therefore respect one whom capacities and fortune have placed above him, and not, as a perfidious slave, conspire against the life of his master. Orestes sees Theodosius blushing and trembling at this incontestable truth, terrible and embarrassing to him. The international impact of this diplomatic approach is immense. The Germanic kings and other barbarian leaders feel that, before their eyes, a new world is born. Now the proud Emperor Theodosius was obliged to bear all humiliations, to recognize the significant title Emperor of the North, King of the Huns, of Attila. Thus Attila, the King of the Huns, obtained diplomatic recognition of his status as suzerain of the Eastern Roman Empire, while the dependence of the Western Roman Empire of the Huns was no secret to anyone. Also his status as emperor of a great federation of the others politically organized European peoples. In conformity with Attila's will, Theodosius sent him as ambassadors his two patricians Anatolius and Nomus, that is to say, the personalities with the highest position of dear and beloved fathers of the emperor. They arrived with the tribute of the Roman Oriental Empire and rich gifts. Attila was touched and softened his claims. He even believed for some time the possibility of a sincere friendship with the eminent representatives of the Roman nobility. Count Maximin speaks in a sad voice. I am absolutely disgusted with the conduct of our emperor and the odious eunuch Chrysippus. Having analyzed the events, I am amazed by the nobility and tact of Attila in relation to us. Vigilus confirmed to Attila that we and the other members of the embassy knew nothing. Attila released him with his son, considering him unworthy even of his anger. Priscus nods his head. Yes, the situation was very unpleasant for us. We have been manipulated very despicably by Chrysippus with the consent of Theodosius. I do not exclude that Chrysippus would have wished to eliminate you on this occasion by the hands of the Huns enraged by the murder of their emperor. What perfidy! What a prejudice to the honor of the Romans! The Attila court can now consider us as the barbarians. Priscus does not deprive himself of the possibility of showing his erudition. The Parthians, descendants of the Scythians as part of the Huns, considered the Romans as barbarians. Maximin is surprised. Why? It is enough to recall the perfidy of Caracalla, who began to exchange a correspondence with the king of the Parthians, of whom he declared himself his friend, and pretended to want to become his son-in-law. I remember very vaguely this story. Caracalla described to the king the plan of the union of the two empires reconciled by a political marriage. He said that even China and India could not resist the combined forces of Parthia and Rome. That is true. If, instead of intrigues, the Roman empires concluded a treaty of union with the Hun Empire, one might hope to have lasting peace. I now believe that it would be possible with Attila, so noble and educated. Caracalla also insisted on the economic advantages of union, that the free market between the two empires and free circulation would be profitable to trade. What argument! Besides, very convincing. Yes. Caracalla has convinced the king and a fairly large fringe of his Pacific courtiers. Surrounded by an escort of legions of elite, he arrived at Ctesiphon to celebrate the historical marriage. Its road to the great metropolis of the Parthians was covered with flowers. Unbelievable. Herodian writes that the people of Ctesiphon cheered him with real fervor. A reception had been organized in a nearby plain. All the partisans of the peace of the Parthian metropolis had come to witness this historic moment. Caracalla was charmed, dispensed with flattery. The knights and paths guards, wine and music helping, relieved their vigilance. Then Caracalla ordered his guards to massacre all those Parthians who naively believed in the possibility of peace and union with the Romans. But the king escaped the legionaries. What a shame! According to Orestes, Attila aspires to union with the Romans. But he is not so naive as this poor and noble king of the Parthians. That's not all. Caracalla pushed his forfeit to the point of profaning the mausoleum of the Parthians. Like the bishop of Margam who provoked this war, the reaction of the Parthians was terrible. Caracalla fled before their army and was assassinated by the Romans to appease the desire for revenge of the Parthians. But his successor Macrene had to capitulate and pay heavy war indemnities. Impressed, Maximin is silent, then declares, "I will resign to show my disagreement with Chrysippus' perfidies."